and I hear this whistle, like something like that, and then I hear like a crash. So I look to my left, 20-some feet away, it was standing up against a tree, and it turned its head like this, turned its whole shoulders like this, and looked right at me. When it did that, it sort of snarled. I could see the eye teeth. To be honest with you, I started tingling. I dropped my head. I was afraid to look for very long. I didn't want to think that, like, I was gonna come after it, so I put my head down like this. Starting to rock back and forth, and I don't know what's going on, and I'm kind of like, I'm shaking. He knew the ins and the outs of the Allagash fairly good. I mean, I went trout fishing there before with him. You know, we went partridge hunting. You know, up there you call partridge, down here we call grouse. But
right.
You know, it's one of those situations. I went fiddlehead picking with him, all this stuff. You know, so we got to spend a fair amount of time. And I never went dipping smelt before, and I guess it was that time of year. You know, it was chilly, but in Maine that doesn't take, it doesn't take much, and it was like a wet. It was wet. I don't know if it was spring or fall. Okay, I don't think it was spring because I don't remember seeing any buds on the trees. Does that make sense?
I'm trying to remember though. I think usually the smelt run. I thought the smelt run was after ice out. And in the Allagash, that can be like, in May.
All I know is the smelt were running that day. The moon was out and everything else. I mean, I guess there's a certain criteria when the smelt run. But
so
anyway,
ice on the ground.
But there might have been some ice around the mud puddles or something, because when you're driving those dirt roads back through the Allagash and stuff like that, they get puddles because they're all dirt roads.
Right.
It's one of those situations. But anyways. We went into the Allagash. We were probably driving like 45 minutes or so, 40 minutes. I don't really know where we were at, to be honest with you. I left it up to the guy's name was. After this sighting happened, I was in like a trance, to be honest with you. I mean, there wasn't much that really meant anything to me. But anyways, we get there. We're getting out. They get their nets. They got the trunk of the car open, everything else. At the time, you're supposed to take milk jugs, because when you use milk jugs to catch smelt, because if the smelt are too big, they get crunchy when you go to eat them and all this stuff like this. So you leave the top on so you can fit the smelt down through, so on and so forth. Plus, I think you're only allowed to get a gallon of smelt every time or something. Anyways, we went to head down over, and I'm walking, and I got a net in my hand and everything else, but I left my milk jug up in the car. So I turned to my buddy and I said, "Grab this. I got to go back to the car." And I said, "Where are we going?" He says, "Just follow the path. You can't miss it." So anyways, I go back to the car. I'm fumbling around. I go to take a leak, and I grab the milk jug, and I get in the car and get my can of snuff, because I'm a chewer and always have been. But I get my can of snuff. I close the door. Now, to be honest with you, this is something that confuses me, because I'm almost positive I slammed that car door, okay? But it apparently didn't play an effect. So what happens is I get out of the car, I come around, I now have my milk jug. You know, I come walking there in a embankment, probably about 4 foot embankment. I get on the 4 foot embankment, I start walking, about 75 yards, maybe 60 to 75 yards, it wides off. Okay, there's 2 paths. Now, I can't tell you what's at the end of each path because I never made it that far. Well, anyways, I didn't. I could hear the brook, like, I don't know, off in the distance, so I took the path to the right. And I start walking down the path to the right, and I'm just moping along, so on, so I put a chew in, and I hear this whistle, like something like that, and then I hear like a crash. So I look to my left, and I didn't see anything, and then when I turned around, about 20 feet, 20-some feet away, it was standing up against a tree, and it turned its head like this, turned its whole shoulders like this, and looked right at me. When it did that, it sort of snarled. I could see the eye teeth. They actually have like little I don't know how long it was, but the mouth was real long. The teeth weren't real white, but they were like a yellowish color. I mean, and to be honest with you, I started tingling. I don't, you know, I dropped my head. I was afraid to look for very long. I didn't want to think that, like, I was going to come after it. So I put my head down like this, but I'm still watching, you know, like this, and it's looking at me like this, and it's starting to rock back and forth. And I don't know what's going on, and I'm kind of like, I'm shaking. And,
A flashlight with you, or you said it was dark, but you had a full moon?
so, no, the moon was out. It was pretty light out. I could still fairly see well, and I didn't have a flashlight.
20 feet.
You're right on top of this creature.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
When I seen the teeth and it was rocking back and forth, that shook me. You know, I'm
It turned and faced you, was completely blocked.
No, it didn't turn the whole way. It just turned its shoulders.
Yep.
Because the reason, because I played this over in my mind 1,000 times. It was maybe 3-4 feet off the path on a tree. Okay, it wasn't on the path. It was 3-4 feet. See, apparently the guys had taken the other path.
Right.
Okay, it went the other way. Apparently, when I caught him turning around, he was looking down where they were at. I don't know if he was watching, you know, I'm assuming he was watching them.
Right.
And the size of this thing is phenomenal. I mean, I'm talking between 3.5 and 4 foot wide. And I'm talking when he turned to the side, the thickness of the chest was probably 2.5 to 3 feet thick. That's, I mean, big, burly chested, you know. And this is what I was getting back about the hair, because I keep thinking about this with the hair. Well, you know, they aren't able to find the core in the hairs and all this stuff.
Right.
You know, and when it started to turn, it like flashed white for like because I never even looked down at the lower legs, to be honest with you, because there was a lot of underbrush there and things like that, and I put my head down, but I still was looking up through the top of my eyes, like at the top part. But when it turned, I was looking right at it because I hadn't dropped my head yet, and it sort of like flashed white and then went to black.
That's
like
a really
black,
interesting detail.
Like a black with a shiny coat, you know what I'm saying? It almost looked like it was sprayed with oil or something like that. The hair was not this comb shit. It was like knotted and things like this. And when it started rocking, I could see the hair on the back of its arm like slinging back and forth.
So the hair on the arm was
fairly long. How long would you estimate the hair on the arms to be?
4 inches long.
Now, was the
hair length consistent over the body? I mean, I know it's dark, but I'm just trying to get a gut feeling from you.
Over the body it was, but believe it or not, it looked like it had like a hairdo. It like hair coming down along the back. Had like hair across the face and across the chin like a beard.
Right.
Except for right around the eyes, real heavy brow, that type of thing, and around the lips. You could make when it grimaced, I could make out the long mouth and everything. So,
wow.
It's one of these situations where when it started rocking, I really got shooken so bad that I put my head down and I don't know how long it stood there rocking, to be honest with you. It could have been 1 second, but it felt like an eternity.
Mm-hmm.
And then it took off. And I'm going to tell you right now that when it took off, it was kind of like I seen like 1, 2 steps, crash, and it was gone. I don't know what. I didn't even turn my head to try to follow it. I still had my head down. I could only see like as far as my eyes would let me see.
Mm-hmm. Okay?
So I seen this, and I'm standing there, and I'm like in disbelief, and my body's tingling. I may have even pissed myself a little bit. I don't know.
Well, you're in a state of shock.
There's no doubt about it.
Right.
And I'm standing there, and I'm like, there's no way in hell that I am walking down there. But where did they go? Where did they go? That type of thing. So I finally turn around and I walk back to the car, and I get in the car and I wind the windows up, and about 45 minutes later I'm sitting in the back of the car, and my buddy comes up and he says, "Where the hell were you at?" I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "We're all done, we've got our limit, you got to get down there and get yours." I said, I can't go down there. And they all knew this, and there was no way in hell that I was going to tell him about what I had seen. I mean, I was already crying. I used it, for I guess you could say for a cover story, because I did this shit, and they knew that I had I told them as I was walking down the hill, I twisted my ankle and popped my knee out, and I had to crawl back up over the hill. And they're like, "Well, why didn't you call me? Call out for us? We would have come and got you and that." And I basically kept lying to them and telling them, "Look, I didn't think you would hear me with the crick noise and everything, the brook noise and all this stuff like this."
Well, maybe maybe that's why.
This is before we ever had cell phones, so.
You said you slammed
door. You thought you slammed the door of the car, but maybe the creature didn't hear you because you were near a stream, right? I mean, you said there's water sounds. State of shock. That might have enabled you. These things are, from what I understand, these things are really wary. It's hard to get up on them, and it sounds like you walked right up on this thing. You came up behind it, right?
Yeah.
I honestly think there was another one over to my left-hand side when I was coming down the path. The whistle and that crack sound. I wouldn't say it was a wood noise. It was actually a tree break, I think, or something like that. But the whistle noise was no doubt. I mean, it's nighttime. You can still see because the moon was out. I remember that because when I was looking at its face, everybody talks about this shine, this orange shine and stuff. I didn't see that. I seen like a reflection, and I seen black, like real deep set eyes, and it was black. It was almost looking like a black emerald, with that have Vaseline on it, like shining back at you.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see any green. I didn't see any orange. I didn't see anything like that. I don't know if maybe they're seeing that because they put artificial light in its eye or something. Because of photoreceptors or something. I don't know. I did not see that.
About how long from when the other one, let's just assume there were two. When you heard the whistles, about how long after you heard the whistles did you encounter the creature?
instantaneously.
So
when I heard that, I turned that way. When I turned back around, it was turning around. And I say he because I didn't see any breast or anything else, and it was really thick. It wasn't a female, I don't think.
So do you
because
think
I
it
didn't
moved
see
in
any
response
breast.
to the whistle?
Huh?
Well,
Like, did you think the creature responded to the whistling and turned around?
I absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, believe it was responding to the whistle. I don't think it even knew I was there until it turned around. You follow where I'm going?
Yeah, that's real consistent, so it almost sounds as if that the one that whistled saw you, and the one that you encountered wouldn't have saw you if it hadn't been for the other one warning it.
I would have walked up on it.
You walked up on it, right. Now,
No, I would have been about 3 feet away from it if I'd have kept walking. I mean, it was right there.
Wow.
I mean, as long as the arms were and everything else, when it was rocking back and forth, the one hand was still on the tree and it was rocking like this, well, it could have stuck its arm out and took my head off very easily. I mean, very easily. Its arms were that long, it could have reached out over top of the pathway. And you could tell that these paths had been used a lot too because they were beaten down. Now, I think maybe it was people using it to go down to the lake or whatever, but they were well beaten paths. Because if they were grown...
I'm sorry, did you notice any particular odor?
No. No odor.
Now, what was the overall, how tall do you think this thing was?
At minimum, 7.5 feet. Minimum.
7.5 feet?
At minimum.
Wow.
It could have went clear as high as 9 foot tall, but between 7.5 feet, 9 foot tall. I'm going to tell you now, I never went back. People, I told a couple of my buddies this, that they're like, well, how did you never go back, and why didn't you go? I couldn't bring myself to go back. I couldn't. I honestly couldn't. And when we would go, when we would go trout fishing, I would stay with the guys all the time, because we went up there a fair amount. I just, it's one of these situations that, I do remember that we passed a logging outpost, like where a bunch of, loggers would stay at. It was like a long building with like 3 or 4 doors on it, where they would spend the night.
You have to go through one of those gates, a lot of the gates that you have to pay or have to go through a gate.
I don't remember going through a gate.
Okay,
I do not remember going through the gate. I know we didn't pay anything.
And you got there with a car, so the roads couldn't have been too awfully bad. You said it was about 45 minutes from, you said Caribou, right?
No, it was about 45 minutes worth of driving once we got on the dirt road.
Oh.
So it took us about 45 minutes to get from Caribou, 45 minutes to an hour and 10 minutes to get into the park, to get into the Allagash, and then about 45. So you're looking at the total time, probably pretty close to 2 hours from Caribou.
The creature turned to look at you. How much mobility? I'm watching you here because I'm only recording this in audio. But when you showed me that movement, you kind of turned your whole body. How much movement do you think that the neck actually had?
Not much. The neck may have moved maybe I don't know. I'm going to say 30 degrees, but the shoulder moved the other 30 degrees.
What you saw to the turn in the Patterson video.
It's similar, but see, his feet never moved. His lower body never moved. Only his upper body moved. That's it. It was one of these situations. But it was pretty consistent. It wasn't jerky. It wasn't like he moved back. It was consistent that. He started out he was like this, had his hand on there, arm down the side, and I seen him when he was about like this, and I just turned around and he was turning around. Neck may have moved a little bit, but then the shoulders come right there. It was like the head moved, hit a point, and then the shoulders had to move to look back. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Now, when the creature grimaced at you, did you notice any other features of the face? Did it, did the eyes do anything odd? Did you notice maybe the hairs standing erect on the body, or did it just grimace?
Well, hair was standing erect on my body. That's for damn sure. But what I noticed is the two things that really stuck out with me were the eyes and the eye teeth, because I had never thought about it having fangs.
Right.
That just floored me. And how long the mouth was. I'm not talking. Our mouths go maybe to the center of our eyes.
Right.
It seemed like its mouth was out past the corner of its eyes, real long, real long mouth.
A gorilla or a chimp.
Well, I don't know that much. I don't know much about chimp anatomy, but yeah, it was long. Now the nose was real flat. It wasn't a real big, nose, but it was a wide nose, and it was kind of like smushed down. Okay, it wasn't like we have a pointy nose or anything else like this. It isn't like a gorilla nose where it's recessed, and but it actually had a nose. Now right in here, okay. I actually see wrinkles down through here. Now I don't, as far as the hair standing on the head, the short hair on the head, and I didn't really. The head was more rounded, the crown. You know how they talk about the sagittal crest and stuff like this. It was rounded, more rounded, and I didn't. This is after playing it over in my mind. I didn't distinctly look at it, but playing it over in my mind, it was more rounded than it was crest point. That type of thing. Even when it was looking right at me, I still didn't see it. But what I did see was a lot of hair. Like, the hair was like messed up. Like, if you took someone long hair and shook their hair when it was dry, how it would be like knotted like this, except it was wet or oily or something like that.
Was it kind of like dreads?
When I think of dreads, I think of these like Jamaicans that twist this shit, and it wasn't anything. It was just messed up long hair. The long hair actually come down over the shoulders, like down here from the back of its head. Okay,
right.
The hair on the body was 3 to 4 inches long, like in the arms, and the chest was actually kind of thinner. I didn't see any long hair there, but then again, I wasn't really looking. But I noticed the hair on the arms.
But there was hair on the chest. The chest wasn't bare.
Was not bare. I don't think it wasn't as heavy as it's on the arms, but it was not bare.
Now, the hair that you saw up here, was that hair or? Have you familiar with what an orangutan looks like? They have these the males have these large, fleshy crests.
Yeah, this was hair. This was not one of the fleshy crests. No.
Now the hair.
You said the thing had a hair, mustache, and a beard. Was that the same color as the overall hair body, or was it a slightly different tint?
Well, like I said, it flashed like a white for a second, and then it turned. When it finally got turned the whole way, the moon hit it and looked like a real dark black. But it was like an oily, wet look to it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
His color was consistent, except like around the eyes and that. It was like a grayish color. Like it wasn't white. It wasn't like brown. It was like, I don't know, like palish gray, like a light gray type look around the eyes and stuff like that. Where there wasn't much hair, you could see the skin.
You details about under the eyes. You said there was wrinkles. If you just had to make a guesstimate, what would you say? Because we can't figure out what the age of this thing was. But what type of maturity would you say this looked like? A young animal, an adult in its prime, or maybe an adult past its prime. I mean, did you get any sense of that?
In its prime, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. There was no ifs, ands, buts about that. I mean, this thing was, I could feel, I don't want to say I felt it, but I could see how physically strong it was, it was just massive. The shoulders were so pronounced and it was so thick, and it was one of these things where it was just like, it was a monster. It could have taken my life and ended it right there. No doubt about that. And I would have stood there and have it come up and rip my head off if it wanted to be honest with you. There's no ifs, ands, buts about that. This was not a juvenile. This was not no one on its last leg. By no means. This was, not that I know anything about the life cycle, but if I compared it to a human life cycle, for us, I would say it was probably in the prime of its life, anywhere from 25 to 45 in human terms.
Did you get a sense of the belly? Would you have said that you say it's in the prime, but did you get any sense of it having a pot belly, having a flat belly?
The belly actually bumped, it actually had a belly on it. It did not, it actually like swollen belly a little bit. It actually did have a swollen belly. The chest was so, defined and it was just so thick, but the belly come out like this. The best way that I can explain this, if you look at Paul Freeman's video, with the one walking by the pine tree in the background,
yes, I've seen that.
The belly was sticking out a lot like that. except the one that I seen had a thicker chest.
I was impressed by, this has been 20 years ago, and you still have a really strong reaction to telling this story. It sounds to me like there was some form of nonverbal communication going on between you and this creature, because you're describing when you looked down, that's kind of an instinctive thing that a lot of primates will do for a submissive behavior, to not. Now, you obviously probably didn't think it, but you just did that, right? Because of you felt this gut reaction. I mean, what do you think would have happened had you done something other than what you did, if you'd acted at all aggressive towards this animal?
I never even give that a thought. I'll be honest with you. I'd be afraid to say I would like to think it wouldn't hurt me, but if I would have made an aggressive move or something, I don't know. I did that intentionally. I dropped my head right there because I was scared shitless. I mean, there's no way that I wanted to make eye contact with it. I watch these assholes say, hey, just walk up and, I think you said it once or twice too, just walk up and see what the damn thing is, yeah? You'll do that one time, huh?
I said, I have said that, you're right.
You'll do that one goddamn time and I'll guarantee you will never do it again. Even if it runs away from you.
No,
I have to tell you with all seriousness, I mean, I joke around a lot, but I'm really serious about this, and I probably would have had the exact same reaction you had, because it gives me goosebumps just listening to you tell the story.
I think about, I dream about it sometimes, and it still affects me. I mean, I get up, wander around because I'm just like stressed out about it. Now, it's become more of a fascination for me now, older in life and things like this, and I've had time to reflect on it, but it was devastating to me. It took me 3-4 days just to get myself back to reality. I remember a distinct tingling feeling, and I don't get me wrong, I don't know about this this low cycle for frequency and stuff like this. I don't think it was that. I just think it was my body, tightening up, like your asshole puckering up,
Well, you have a fear or flight response. I mean, you're talking about
encountering this massive, huge, incredibly powerful creature that's behaving a little bit threatening to you. I mean, that's a natural response to be scared,
I probably wouldn't have half these feelings if it didn't grimace at me and I didn't see the eye teeth. Because that to me, every animal I ever known, a sign of aggression was showing your teeth. From dogs to bears, everything, any type of, apex predator shows its teeth. Well, the best way I can explain it, it looked like a 22-pound bowling ball with the hair draped over top of it. It was big, it was black. I mean, the hair, even the cheeks, they weren't like square or boxy. They were sort of like roundish type look around the face. It wasn't boxy, didn't have a flat face or anything like that. So, and like I said, the hair on the head was longer. It actually, it was going down behind the shoulder. So I don't know how long it went down to the back. If it could have went clear down the ass, I wouldn't have known. Right. I just seen like the hair, because it's sort of like, it looks like a ramp. It runs like right up, not in the front, but like right back in here on the back part of the head. Mm-hmm. It's like the trapezic area actually runs like right here. This is like solid, like right in through here. I couldn't see it. There was no, you see how my neck is from the side? Right. No visible mark of any neck, to be honest with you. So it was one of these situations where the head just was like a big massive bowling ball, and when it opened its mouth, the first thing, and this is all happening like in 1-2 seconds. When the mouth opened up and the upper lip curled up, I didn't see the bottom of the fang. I just seen these two teeth right here, not even the front here, but like off to the side here a little bit, where I didn't see the bottom of those. It was actually, I would say it probably protruded about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch if I had to guess below.
So the lower canines were the ones that were most visible?
No, the upper ones were, because it rolled its upper lip. I didn't notice anything from the lower lip. I just seen the upper lip, like it rolled the upper lip. I don't know how to explain it, but this sort of like come up this way, and all I seen was the canines, and I didn't even see the bottom, so I just always assumed that it went to a point because I could see these. I could see the straight line, almost the straight line of the teeth, and then there on one on each side, it was still projecting down. You know, it isn't like it rolled its fangs out over its bottom lip or anything.
Right.
It didn't roll it out over the bottom lip. The bottom lip stayed pretty much stationary, maybe stretched a little bit, but, you know, I was just like focused like in this, and then I dropped my head and I was looking from the top of my eyes pretty much from that point forward.
Any type of noise, because some animals, bears in particular, will do what's called a teeth popping, and other people have reported Sasquatches in, you know, either grinding or popping their teeth. Did you have any? Did it do?
You're gonna think this is kind of funny, but I didn't hear any popping or anything. But I heard like a, I call it like a snort or a whinny like type sound. You know, it sounded like a like, you know, like a horse like whinnies a little bit.
Yes.
Sort of like that, but like a deeper rasp. But it was more nasally than anything else.
And that was directed towards you?
Yeah, it was looking right at me when it did it, so I'd assume. I mean, like I said, you know, once I seen those teeth and that, I dropped my head. I put it down and I was just looking this way. I didn't want to take the chance of it thinking that I was going to be aggressive in any shape or form. You know, if it would have taken a step,
that was probably a smart move on your part.
If it would have taken a step any direction, any other way, I would have probably laid flat on the ground. Because I didn't want them thinking that, you know, I was going to follow them, I was going to do anything. And I'm standing there and I'm actually crying after I see this. And it takes me like, I know at least, it felt like forever, but it took me at least 3 or 4 minutes to get my composure to get back to the car. So, you know, it's one of these things that, you know, it burned in my brain. I mean, that's all I can say about it.
Right.
You know, I'll never forget it as long as I live. And, you know, I listen to these people, oh, it's all fake. You know, I give up trying to convince people and all this shit like this. I know what I know. I know how, you know, how it's affected my life. You know, I mean, I go out, I don't call myself a researcher or anything else. I go out, I walk through the woods, I carry a gun with me. I would never, ever in a million years ever go out. And to be honest with you, it'd probably kill me after I shot it or whatever if it come after me. But I'm going to do something before it kills me. But I just did not get the feeling that, you know, they're that safe. You know, you've got guys, you know, watch this Animal Planet now. They got guys like Bobo and that lunatic moneymaker. I don't put that in the, you know, running around with no guns and things like this. I wouldn't suggest that to anybody. Just what I would tell people is this is a wild animal. Plain and simple. It may have normal responses, but it is a wild animal. At any given time or any given moment, it could change. You know, that's where I'm at with it. And
I just want to summarize what you told me, and you can tell me if I've got any errors here. But you were headed down this path, and you believe this too because you heard this whistling, and about the same time you heard the whistling, this creature turned and kind of side directed, looked at you, had an arm up on a tree. Is that what you said?
Probably the easiest way. It was a snap too. I heard a snap. The whistle and the snap almost instantaneous, and it was standing. The path runs down here. It was standing like 3 or 4 feet off, leaning up against a tree like this, looking down that way. At least that's where I caught it turning from. Let me put it this way. I didn't see it standing there looking. Right. But when it started turning, its hand was still on the tree, and it went like this.
And that's when you heard the snap?
No, I heard the snap and the whistle before I ever seen...
so there was a whistle and a branch snapping.
Yeah, a whistle and a snap before I ever seen it. When I was walking down the path, I'm just walking along, I just come down that little foot, I hear like that, and a snap, and I turn and I look, and I don't see anything, I turn around, and it's right there. You know, it's like 3 or 4 feet off the path. It was standing right beside a white birch tree. You know obviously you know what I mean by white birch tree.
Do you have a recollection of any detail of the hand? Did you get to see any of its hands?
No, not really. I didn't really pay attention, except really the hand just, you know, I think I seen more of the elbow and the forearm holding on to the tree than anything else. And when it started rocking back and forth, because it was standing there, You know, if you stand there like this and it turns around like this, okay, and then it starts doing one of these, rocking back and forth, and the hair down here is when I noticed the hair, because I dropped my head when that was happening, because it already had its teeth in there, and it started rocking like this, and I seen the hair flopping back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, you know. Does that clear it out for you?
Yes. So I'm going
to describe what I just saw you do, because this is just going to be audio, but what you're saying is that this creature was rocking by leaning towards you and back away over and over again while it did that grimacing, and it was hanging onto the tree at the same time.
Well, I don't want to say, you know, I don't want to say it was like this.
Yeah.
It was more like this.
Oh, kind of sideways?
Yeah, it's like, maybe not like a circle, but like it wasn't like straight forward, straight
I
back.
guess it's kind of a combination of rocking.
Yeah, it was like a top, when the top goes to fall down, how it starts to flop around a little bit.
Yes.
Similar to that, but a little more structure to it. But it wasn't back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. Or this way. It was sort of like, you know, I don't know if it was because it was rolling on its hips or whatever else. You know, I've never seen the feet, never seen, the ass was like phenomenally big. I could see the crease down the back of the ass, like right in here. I'm actually able to see it, you know, when it turns around this way, I'm actually able to see like the pronounced cheek of the ass a little bit. Because the brush was only probably, well, for it, and this is kind of a funny thing because this is what messes me up with the height. This is why I give you such a long range on the height. The proportion of the legs are so much different than the humans. You know, like the upper leg was above everything. Okay, but the grass wasn't that high. I mean, the shrubbery and the brush and everything else was probably only about 2.5 feet off the ground. And it was like it only went up to like right around the knee area. Does that make sense? It was like this. This part was longer than the lower part of the leg. See, I don't know about what the actual names of the leg are, but yeah.
How long would you estimate the total sighting from the time that you recognized, you know, you heard the whistle, the tree snap, you saw the creature? How long, did that happen before it took off? What was the total length of your encounter?
Felt like forever, but I would say probably somewhere around the neighborhood of 10 to 15 seconds.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah. I mean, it were up back and forth for quite a bit of time.
Really?
I know at least 3 or 4 seconds.
That's scary.
Wow, man, that must have been terrifying.
Scary. I told you. I mean, 20 years later, I still can't talk about it without getting choked up. I was devastated. That's why I put my head down. Like I said, I know that if it would have taken a step towards me, I would have collapsed on the ground, either passed out or did it intentionally, but I didn't want to give it any thought that I was going to do anything aggressive towards it. Nothing.
And you were locked eyes with this thing for a brief.
Yeah.
Put your head down.
About 3-4 seconds. When what I seen sunk in, my brain might be a little slow, but it took me a few seconds for me to actually translate what I just seen into process it, and I dropped my head. Maybe 3-4 seconds most.
Now, you have insight into this biological phenomenon that very few people have because, there are other people out there that have encounters, but, that personal experience is something that, like I don't have that type of experience to go by. So what is your opinion of the Freeman footage and the Patterson footage? Do you think those are videos of real animals, and how does it compare?
Without a shadow of a doubt. You don't even have to finish the statement. Without a shadow of a doubt.
So they're comparable to what you saw in the state of Maine?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Especially the Freeman video. I'd say the Freeman video is probably an older one, not in its prime. But, if you can think of a more robust one with thicker shoulders and, stronger upper body, I would say the Freeman really rings true.
You have given me a lot to think about. I can't thank you enough for sharing this experience with us. And I will tell you that the reason I asked about the pot belly is there's been some discussion as to whether these things are omnivores or herbivores. And herbivores, like gorillas, tend to have large stomachs. So that was why I asked you that question. But
I'm stunned by your sighting. I spent a lot of time in the area up there where you're talking about, and like I said, when you were telling me the story, I was getting goosebumps. I mean, it's. I would say that's probably the single best Bigfoot sighting I've ever heard of in the state of Maine.
Well, I will tell you one thing too. I know on the east side of the base that they had some unexplained things. I don't, it could have been horseplay or joking around, but I knew when we were doing a survival training bivouac camp out, and we had a bunch of GP medium boxes stacked up, and you actually had to use a forklift to pick them up and actually move them. Because you'd have a forklift come over, move the box over where you're going to put the GP medium up, and then so on and so forth. We had them stacked up like side by side, and like the top four got pushed off. Now nothing ever come about. The major at the time actually accused guys of horseplay, and we got a big lecture on this and stuff like that. But I'm not saying that was anything, but I can tell you the east side of the base over there at Loren, out there where they have the silos and the underground bunkers and everything.
Yes.
No one ever spent any time out there. So there's a lot of opportunity. And this is one of the reasons why I think Maine there isn't that many sightings, because it's so massive.
Right.
And it's so active as far as undergrowth and everything else. I mean, you have a hard time. Well, let me get this real quick. You have a hard time seeing when they're standing beside trees, let alone when there's a lot of active growth and you've got spasmodic pine trees and everything else.
Right.
There's a lot of fill going on there, So I honestly think there's more. I just don't think, as far as like migrating, I could see that, them being, roaming winter, summer, because in the summertime, as well as I do, in the spring, the amount of feed there is phenomenal.
Oh, there's tons of animals.
I mean, we got bear and moose and deer. I mean, that supports a healthy ecosystem. I mean, anything could live up there. I mean, practically.
Yeah. I mean, the winters are rough, I know that, but, I mean, it didn't survive generations, thousands of years not having the ability to adapt and overcome, so. But anyways, like I said,
well, thanks again. Thank you so much. I'll be
you.
in contact with you, but thank you so much. I'm going to put this together for a video, and we're going to put it out there. And
that this will interest a lot of people, and you've given me a lot to think about.
Yeah. If you have any other questions or anything, shoot me an email, and we can set it up and do another Skype or something like that. I don't have a problem with that.
Super.
But Mike, you're going to be my only contact point. So
right, I'm going to stop
please,
recording.
What you want? Come on.